So maybe you're planning or setting up your slot car track and, part of it's up against a wall. And you think, hey, why not use that wall to help improve your scenics and make your track look a little more realistic? Well, there's lots of ways to do that. And today I'm going to show you one way I use to help add some dimension and interest to your slot car track scenery. There are a couple basic things you have to think about when you're planning your scenery. First of all, your length you're going to need, the dimensions and height. But probably the most important thing is what kind of scenery do you want? What's the atmosphere you want to create? Where are you planning on racing? When it comes to track type and location, you have lots of choices. Maybe you want to go racing in the countryside, or maybe you prefer racing through the desert. Some people enjoy racing through an alpine scenery, through the mountains, or maybe you want something totally different. You want to race on a nice flat prairie. In other cases, you might race in an urban setting, in a town or a city somewhere. Those races are pretty common, those kind of tracks. Maybe you want to race rallies in the winter and have a landscape that reflects that. Whatever your choice is, you still have different ways to create that kind of scenery. Now, sometimes people will go ahead and hand paint their scenery. If you have the skill to do that, I've done it in the past. That's great. Those can look really good. But if you lack that kind of skill, you can either buy scenery. Model railroad suppliers often sell, backgrounds of many different types. But what I'm going to show you this time around is the techniques I use. Basically, I start with some images that are available on the web. Panoramic images usually work best. You can use them if you're using them from your own personal use. You can use these and adopt them and modify them however you want. And I'll show you the techniques I use to get this done. To start working on these backgrounds, there's a few things you're going to need. First is going to be a usable image. And that's probably going to be a panoramic image. It's got to be something fairly wide. You're probably not going to find something like, say, if you need a 12-foot wide image, you're probably not going to find something that's going to be a full 12 foot. You might have to take another image and kind of like stitch it together to make it as long as you want. But that's not too hard. But you got to have an image. It's got to be pretty high resolution. So you want to try to find a large image, and I'll show you how you do that. Next thing you're going to need is going to be a graphics program and some kind of like page layout program. This is going to be the document that you actually create. Maybe it's that 2-foot high by 10-foot wide image, that you're going to print out of your background. Now, there are a lot of free image and publishing programs out there. You can do a Google search. You can find some free alternatives. You can get an older version of a program, maybe that somebody else is no longer using. Microsoft Publisher, is a common one. It probably works good. I use Quark Express, which I've had for many years. You can make a large size document of it. But there's a lot of things out there. Canva is a free one a lot of people use there, but I think the widest size you can make is about 52 inches, which is about 4 feet. So again, you might have to print out a few different pieces to get the width you want. Gib, Adobe Corel Draw is another one you can use. Affinity has some various programs you can use for that. It's a reasonably cost-effective program. And again, Microsoft Publishers. But you might be able to find, like I said, an old version is going to be just as good for this. You don't need the newest one. Once you get that page, you get the image, you might need the other thing is a photo editor, and that's going to be a little bit different. The photo editor is not to necessarily create the document, but the photo editor is going to allow you to stitch those images together smoothly to make them look nice. Plus, you can adjust the color a little bit. You can adjust the definition. There's a lot of things you can do to manipulate the image a little bit to make it look better before you put it in the page publishing program and prepare it to print out. Another thing you're probably going to use is be good to have on hand is a USB drive. Chances are this this picture or this publication that you have, this page, is going to be a pretty large file. If you don't have a USB drive handy, I mean, almost everybody does, this is going to be a multi-gigabyte file. Or if you have a drop box account or a box account, you can put it online that your publisher, your printer can access. That would work too, just as well. But what you're going to do is you're going to take that file, whether it's on a disk or online somewhere, you're going to get that to your printer, and then they can take that and print it out on their wide format printer. And the wide format printer is going to be something that's pretty big, like maybe HP. Canon makes some large format printers. These are the kinds that they print large posters on. Again, I would suggest check your local library. Some of them have like these creation studios in some of the larger cities where you can access some of this equipment at a very reasonable price to get things printed out. That's what I did. I got mine printed out for a very reasonable price. So check around. There might be a resource, a public resource that you can use locally. Otherwise, if you might have friends, somebody you know can hook you up to get a reasonable price on a large format printing, because it can get pretty expensive. And also realize you don't have to have the very best print material. This is going to be indoors, but you can print on vinyl, but you could also print on maybe a less expensive paper. I would suggest maybe a matte rather than a gloss. But again, your printer will be able to offer you some selections there as far as what you want to print on to get the results you're looking for. So once you've decided on a background, the kind of background you want, whether it's mountains, hills, urban landscape, something mixed, then you do a Google search. And what I did in this case, I wanted some hills and low mountains. I didn't want an alpine mountain landscape. So I did Appalachians panorama. In the panorama, and use your tools here. And when you do tools, you'll get to pick. And I'm looking for a large size file, which is going to be a pretty big image, because that's going to give you the kind of detail you want and the size that's good to work with. You also have to look at the types of images and see, because not everything's going to work. I mean, an image like this is pretty, but you're way too high up. That's not going to be anything realistic for a track. Any of these where you're already up on top of a mountain probably aren't going to work so well. So what I finally settled on is one down here, and this was in the Highlands, the Roan Highlands. What I liked about this one, and you can see it even better over here when I picked it out, it's got hills on either side that come on about the same level. And what that will allow us to do is I can stitch this together pretty well and kind of match these levels up a little bit. And that'll just make it maybe a little less obvious as to, where, as we extend this image to a proper length, we can get a little bit more out of it. So this is the one I'm going to pick. So what I did is, you left click on this, open the image in a new tab. And when you do that, you'll get a much larger image. And this one is, what's that? It was 2,000 pixels by 548. I'd like something a little bit larger, but this will work. Because again, when you're printing this out, it's only going to be 100 dpi when you print out on a large paper. So what we're going to do here in this case is I will take I'll create a new document in this one. We'll go to Quark. And what I want to do is do a new project. I'm only going to do one page. And we're going to do a custom size. And in this case, I'm going to make this, I think it was 9 feet. Let's do 8 feet because they could do this twice. So we're going to go 8 feet. That is 96 inches. We're going to do 96 inches. And let's go to, let's say 16 inches high. All right. And what we have to do here then is you have to take this down. See, because you want to try to get that whole image in here to start. So you're looking at a much reduced size. So there's the size we're going to work on our image. So what we'll do is we'll take this image and we're going to save it. And we'll just call that, let's see, I'll save it to the desktop. Hills. All right, we'll go back to this. And in this case, what we're doing is I will, I'm going to put in a picture. And like any document, you don't put it in all the way out to the edge because your printer's not going to print all the way out to the edge. In this case, you go bring in that picture. It's on the desktop. And there we go, hills. We're going to take that image. We're going to blow it up. Now we're going to need it some more. So again, that's why I said it was good that this image was laid out the way it is. I'm going to take this. I copy it. I'm going to paste it. And as you can see, I'm going to get a pretty close match here. So it's going to take some adjustment. At this point, because I got the pictures pretty close, I can double up the size of this and get a better look at what I have to work with here. My goal here is I want to try to get this matched as best I can so that this, where these meet, will be less obvious. There's one issue here there we go. And I'm going to take this one and just, again, these are usually just some fine adjustments that you're trying to make to get things to match up the way you want. Sometimes you have to just tweak these a little bit to get them the way you want them, because again, you're never going to eliminate the seam, but what you're hoping to do is just make that seam a little less evident so that you won't notice it so much. In this case, bring these down. And let's see, get rid of the guides and we'll see we got a pretty decent match here. A lot of people won't notice that too much. And the thing is, you can always hide that with some scenery or something else like that. But that's a pretty good blend there. I think that'll work pretty well. That seam, I don't think you're going to notice it quite so much. But again, if you go back out, zoom out, and look at that, you got a pretty decent image there. That I think will work. So again, we've got 8 feet here. We don't need this extra width. We can actually take that there. And you see that's what we're left with. I'm continuing thinking these are actually, yeah, this is the same picture anyway. See what we've done here. So we've got that, and now what we want to do is save that. Now I saved this file, and then what I want to do is you want to take this and you want to export it. Most graphic programs are going to allow you to export this as a PDF image is what you're going to want to use here. In this case, you're going to want to compress it because it's so large. You want to use probably some pretty high compression. You might have to play with that around a little bit too, but we'll save that. And see what I got here. See, so for some reason I've got a white there, and I don't want that. So we'll have to figure out what's causing that. I'm not seeing it in the art. But let's go back up. See if we can sort that issue out. All right, and then we're going to try that again. So I'm going to try to export this. And we'll see what we got. And that's what we end up with. This is a PDF file that you could take to a printer and have this printed out. Now, what I might do in a case like this, now I could import this into Photoshop, which is another option here you can really do. If I really wanted to get, picky on this. So I'm going to do in this case, I'm going to import that PDF into Photoshop. And again, you can use just pretty much any kind of program you want. It's going to take a minute because it's a very large picture, but you can see what we got here now in that image. Now what I want to do is take this, I want to blow this up a little bit because the size here on this, take it up to 50. I think that'll give me what I need. My object here is I want to look at that seam and see if I can work on that a little bit. We'll take that, and let's see, we'll blow it up just a little bit bigger. There we go. So the goal here is we want to try to fix this a little bit. And there are tools you can do that in Photoshop. Here's one. Basically, we're going to clone some stuff. So I want to clone this. And what I want is a very soft not quite that big. Yeah, I think that'll work. All right. So what that'll do is that'll allow us to just kind of smooth this out a little bit. Take some of this color here and just kind of blend these together a little bit. And the goal is just kind of like get rid of these hard edges we have here. I'm going to do the same thing down here. I'm going to carry some of that over here a little bit. This, bring some of that over here. You can see what we're doing here. So it's just we just want to kind of soften this edge so you really don't see that transition so much. I don't want that. Whoops. That's what this, it's one of the nice, great things about this clone tool. It's just great for this kind of thing. So that, and I can make that tool and change it up a little bit if I want something a little bit firmer. Say I want some of this over there. As you can see what we've done here. So we've taken that image and we pretty much eliminated that scene. Now what we'll have to do here again is we're going to have to output this again as a PDF again, because I opened it up as a PDF. It works on it in Photoshop or whatever program you're in it, and you're going to have to kick out a new PDF. So we can do that. We just do a save as, and I mean, you could save it as something else, I suppose, if you wanted, depending on what your printer can handle. In this case, I'm going to do it as a Photoshop PDF. I'm going to make this to version 3, and we'll save it. And this is probably going to be a pretty big file. Yeah, see, it's a 23 megabyte file. So you're going to have to take that and, put that on a disk. for your printer to print out. That's the file we're working with there, and that should print up pretty nice. Now, if you had, like, say, 16 feet, you could do 2 of these. You know, maybe make these match in a corner. You can, adjust, make it whatever adjustments you need to make. But again, that's a example of how we could create a, background file that you could use to put on a wall and get printed out. Printing it out is going to be the key thing, because if you go into a commercial print shop, doing these on, like, say, a heavy paper or vinyl, could get pretty expensive. As I mentioned previously, I did mine in a local library. They do these on a 30-inch roll, so you could actually do like almost 2 of these on a sheet, which is what I did. And it was like, I think $2 a foot, a running foot, which is an incredible price on this. But again, the key thing is getting the background, and then getting it printed is another question that you'll have to find your own answer for. Okay, so here's a nice example of something I recently found on eBay. This is a McLaren. It's a very unusual livery. It's one I don't see too often, but it has this really nice dragon livery that I really liked. This car was basically new in the box. The case had just a little bit of damage, which I really don't care about so much because I don't really keep them in the cases. I run the cars, and that doesn't bother me. But in any case, this particular car, something a little bit interesting I found out after I put it on the track, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. So I was taking a look at some of my camera views. I'm trying to set up on the track, and I, put this up there and started looking at the car and realized that you'll notice there's no headlights. There's tail lights. As it comes around the track, look at it again, you'll see there's no headlights, but there's taillights. So I'm trying to figure out, why is that? So let's take the car apart and see what we can find. So I take the body off, flip it over, and give it a look, and man, this is like the most unhappy slot car I have ever seen. So under close inspection, you can see that what they've done here at the factory, and I'm not quite sure, maybe just this particular model or models like it, they've installed these blinders on either side underneath the headlights that block the LED light from getting out through the clear, light lenses. So basically what I had to do here was take off, scratch off some of the adhesive here, and I managed to pop this thing out. Well, of course, the lenses popped right out on the, on the top of my desk. I did manage to get it back in. Thankfully, I had some canopy glue, which is specially created for this kind of situation because it dries clear. It takes a while to dry, though. And managed to get these back in place very carefully, let them sit overnight. And the next day, put everything back together, got the car on the track, and now you can see that the lights do indeed work. Well, that's all for this episode. I hope you found this useful. Again, making these backgrounds, there's so many options you have as far as how you go about it. If you choose to use some computer graphics, this is the technique I use, and hopefully I got to explain it to you in a way that you'll find useful. Obviously, if you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe, maybe suggest it to your friends. We also have a Facebook page you can join, and there's some Instagram as well. So be sure to check out some additional content there. Until next time, keep your hand firmly on the trigger, and when you get that opportunity and see that straight ahead, step on it.